Well, I am gathered here today to defend Cassian to the grave.
Oh,
I am here to tell you of my love of Cassian and Nesta, and I am here to fight off any haters.
oh, okay. Let's get into it, Jordan. What are we talking about today, then?
Okay, so first
What
off,
book?
I'm Jordan,
And I'm Sheridan.
and together we're Sipping on Spice podcast.
And today we are going to be talking about A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This is a follow-up to our previous ACOTAR through Act of War and the novella episode. This is completely full of spoilers. So if you have not read the series and you've not read Silver Flames, we're going to talk about a lot of spoilers, so just beware.
Yes. One of the things I think that prompted us to separate this episode is there is so much like dialogue online around pretty much hating on hating on the relationship between Nesta and Cassian, and even Nesta. And so to me, this book means a lot to me. They are my favorite couple in the series. And Nesta specifically was a really important journey to me. So I just felt like it needed to be its own thing to address so many points.
I completely agree. And that was the point I really wanted to make, so I'm glad you brought that up. We do want to say we are not Nesta or Cassian haters at all. Silver Flames is probably, like, I would say, a book that changed my life. Nesta's journey is also very personal to myself. So everything that we're going to talk about is going to be with the utmost respect for them. I have spicy points for you, but they're from a place of logical debate because I emotionally support all of your feelings, and I absolutely love this book. So
that's okay, because I went into this again with a very critical mindset. I started seeing so much around specifically the context that Cassian never tells Nesta he loves her. And so that always bothered me. There was always references to that, references to more in their relationship. And so I went back into this with a very critical mindset of trying to decide if I agreed. In fact, I was scared to reread it because I was scared that I would find proof of what people were talking about. And I am here to say nay to the haters.
Okay, I have points to make, but I okay. All right, where do you want to start? I actually kind of want to start
I think you can start with your points. Go ahead, because
okay.
I got quotes. I have receipts. Okay. I am ready to fight.
Okay, I don't even think you're going to fight me on this, but if you listen to our last episode, I, upon reread, liked more way better ACOTAR through Act of War. There are specific things more does that, I put myself in Nesta's shoes, and I do not like it. I'm so sorry. The whole, we should have thrown her into the Court of Nightmares. That made me tear up upon reread because it was just so mean-spirited. And again, I just defended more as a girl's girl. So to actually say that, she knew that was going to hurt Nesta. And I just didn't think that was appropriate. And empathizing with Nesta's journey, I just did not like when Moore said that. I also do not like the whole dress. Yes.
So first and foremost there, I want to address, because I agree with that statement for the most part. However, I tried to think of where I thought Moore was coming from. And I think she is incredibly close to Farah. She watched her go through everything she went through. It's almost the same as Rhysand's approach, which is in the way that I would treat anybody who did this to you. So if this was real life and I was Moore and you were Farah, and I had to deal with the sister who I thought abandoned you at a time of need, only had negative words, has this connection with one of my other best friends, and has only ever been nasty, I'm not coming at you from a place of love. I'm coming at it, like, if we're talking fight or flight, like, we're fighting. And so I completely agree with what you said, because I think what she said was mean, and I think that nobody understands, except for Farah, really, what Nesta feels, that she feels so much, and that what she does is a defense mechanism from those feelings. But if you're from an outsider perspective, she's just kind of a bitch.
True. And actually, I love that you say that, because I know that this is a point we're going to talk about, like, Rhysand's actions and behaviors towards Nesta. I only look at it from that is his spouse. So I think his behaviors are explained away that, like, he is in love and his loyalty is to Farah. So he is only looking at it from Nesta has wronged Farah. So, okay. Thank you for sharing that. In that instance, I do say, okay, thank you for explaining. I can see where Moore's coming from.
It was still mean. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's still mean.
It was not good. But if it was you and it was me, I would absolutely say those things out loud. You know what I mean?
Sense.
I'd be like, guess where you can go. I'm not throwing you in the human world. Guess where I'm gonna put you.
Right. Okay, that makes total sense. Another thing, we learn later about Nesta's like that happened when she was a human before she's turned Fae, and then the whole dress comment, like taking it off her body, being like, and Moore says something along the lines of, it's a pity we're not the same size, or else I'd take that dress right off you, because she loves her dress. She loves Nesta's dress. So to me, that's just very like, again, we find out later about Nesta's feelings toward that. Her dress is torn during the second that happens to her when she's a human. So again, you hear from Nesta's perspective that happened to her. So when you put yourself in Nesta's shoes, it's very wrong and Moore to say that. And again, Moore
I never even pieced that together. I never even thought about it that way. I always thought like, oh, Moore's complimenting her dress and she's saying like, don't feel the same.
Yeah, well, I think that's the overtone. You're right. But the undertone to me was it comes off very like aggressive. I
never even thought of that. It's interesting that you say that, because I could totally see that now that you say that, but I would have never like totally over my head from a nuance perspective.
Yes. And I think it's interesting too, because again, it could just be something I'm pulling at straws, but that was my perspective. Because even when she's with the Kelpie in the water, it tears her dress too, doesn't it? Again, she's talking about like her. And she talks about that is what happens to her when she's human. So I think, and again,
things happening to her.
I thought that was kind of like, oh, why would Sarah J. Maas have Moore say that?
But now that you say that, actually, it's a really interesting point, because I think that a lot of times we hear what Nesta says and we think, what a thing to say. Like, why did you have to say that? But now that you've said that, and that's one of those moments that I could never think of why Nesta made the point to be mean. But now that you say that, it's very interesting, because again, when she has these moments that she barks back essentially or bites back, they always have some undertone that nobody else understands but her.
Yes.
And I would have never caught that, but now that you say that, it makes so much more sense to me why she responded that way.
Yes, and that's why I was like, when people say they hate Nesta, it's like, again, blessings that you've never been a Nesta, I guess. Yeah. Or like whatever on that journey.
That's such an interesting point too, because I think that as somebody who myself has always struggled with anxiety, stress, things like that, right? I also have people in my life who have never had that. And when I talk to them through like logically, like how do you think, like if this situation were to happen to you, like what would go through your head, right? And it's interesting to me how different people think, and how if you have never experienced some of these feelings and these thoughts and these undertones like in your head, right? Because a battle in your head is an unseen fight, right? Like only you know what's going on in there and what you're reading into and how aggressive it's feeling. And so it is really interesting when people just look at her so two-dimensionally and have such a hard time seeing her point of view, because what a blessing to have never fought that war in your head, because
exactly
in my mind, I can understand a lot of the things she does.
It's constant. Oh, yes. I have some points against Nesta of her treatment of Farah when they're younger. That's 100% true. Nesta should have helped take care of the family and helped Farah. That is all true in that dynamic with her sisters. Well, her parents are at fault. Their parents are at fault.
She knows.
She knows. And she keeps that guilt forever in her mind, in her constant. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing too that always gets me with Nesta is her constant struggle of not feeling good enough. So she pushes people away, and she does. She says these mean things out of almost like, I'm going to push you away because she feels too much. And I think that leads us into her relationship with Cassian. Maybe we could talk about that next. I want to hear your points.
The other thing I want to say there, though, that was interesting to me, because the thing that I struggled with at first, at the very beginning of Court of Silver Flames, when I first read it, is I had a big gap in time before reading Frost and Starlight and reading Silver Flames. And I struggled with understanding how her character changed so much from kind of coming around, helping out in the war, you know, even what happens with her and Cassian during the war. I really struggled understanding why they got to where they were. And I think upon this reread, I really understood that the trauma of the war for her was different, and that that for her, she saw having these people that she cared about as a weakness. And if she had these people that she cared about, then people like the King of Hybern and other negative influencers could then use those people against her to tear people down, to get her to do things for them, right? To inflict pain. And so for her, the trauma was really around not wanting that opportunity to ever present itself again.
No, I totally agree. And I also think there's a lot of her trauma. You're 100% correct. So again, she's pushing people away. So she removes this opportunity of this pain happening to her because she can't move past the grief of losing her dad the way she did. And then also,
well, and all of it, losing her dad, having Elaine pick up the knife. Again, remembering that Farah was the one who went and hunted for them, saying she remembered the first day she went and hunted, like remembering Cassian breaking in front of her multiple times, and how each of these moments lived with her as her fault and places she failed.
I love that you said that, places she failed, because I think a big part of that too for Nesta is deep-seated guilt and self-hatred. Like deep-seated guilt on previous actions that she, you know what I mean? And how she wasn't there for her sister, or different behaviors. So I think that a big part of it too is when she's going through the beginning of Silver Flames, everything is to numb those feelings. Like she's hooking up with a lot of fae males. She's drinking a lot. She's like living in some squalor. It is all to push away any sense of like feeling, because she feels such deep-seated guilt.
And also, this is the part that upsets me the most, okay? I had never reread the novella. Upon this reread, I did reread it. And they specifically, you have Amren, you have multiple characters tell Farah to essentially stop babying her sisters and let them deal with their problems. Okay?
Yeah.
This is how Nesta dealt with her problems. Now, what's so messed up about this is that when Farah was going through trauma from Under the Mountain, because war, one could argue, is worse than what happened under the mountain, Farah was allowed to wilt away, was allowed to go through all of these emotions and be mean to Rhysand and have him just show up and show up and show up. And all of these people showed up as her friends nonstop. But when it was Nesta's time of need, everyone says to leave her alone and then is mad at who she becomes. And that bothered me so much, because it was like, you forced Farah to heal. Literally forced her, brought her in, said, keep throwing shoes at me, keep doing what you need to do. They, again and again, he antagonized her to make her do things. And until she's at the breaking point, that's when you do it for Nesta, and then you fault her for it. That bothered me. It would be one thing. I agree. It would be one thing if they took her to that house and didn't act like she was this feral beast. But the way they treated her bothered me so much.
And I completely agree. That doesn't make it doesn't make any sense, because again, they're built up in the previous books in the series to be these kind, inclusive, accepting, you have hard days, you keep going people. But I think that's what makes it so sweet when Nesta meets the Valkyries. And because those are her inner circle.
Yes.
And Nesta needed that. Like, she needed people outside of the identity that she had had from the past in her healing journey. So they are the inner circle for her. But I completely agree with you. Oh, a part that super pisses me off on that topic is Amren. I'm sorry. We spend ACOWAR, parts of acomaf, the novella. They're trying to transcribe the book together. They're working together. They actually even kind of have a friendship, and like Farah even makes a point in ACOWAR to be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have had them together, working together, because they're so similar and they're friends and everything's great. Amren, completely, when it's no longer convenient for Amren, just turns her back on her. And is really
she says that Nesta was using her to essentially using that friendship as a blockade from healing, which I think that Amren didn't actually challenge her. She defended her for sure. She didn't share information, sure, but she didn't show up as a friend. Like, there was not an actual friendship aspect. And I also think that that's true across the board for Amren, though. Amren only does stuff for Amren.
Yeah, it just really bothered me because I think from Nesta's perspective, I agree with you. From Nesta's perspective, she was closest with Amryn in the inner circle, and she was the most welcoming. That just cuts so much deeper when Amryn's like, basically figure your out on your own, and we want you gone. Like, we need you located elsewhere. So I thought that is really that it just abandoned Nesta. And again, it's hard because the dichotomy of Nesta is she pushes people away and she's mean because she doesn't want to feel emotions and the guilt, but then she also needs people to reach out to her.
Cassian just kept showing up, and that was the point.
Keep reaching out.
Rhys did the same thing for Farrah.
Totally. I totally agree with you.
And for Amryn to give the keep reaching out your hand advice and then never offer one.
And then never. Oh my God, hypocritical!
Ma'am?
I do not like Amryn in this book. Hypocritical. Hypocritical.
I honestly never felt strongly towards Amryn ever, except for when she releases herself from the cauldron. Yeah. So I don't have strong feelings on that. I want to break down how Mor and Cassian will never happen.
No, and I don't think they're going to happen, but I have points here. They're not going to happen.
Argue with me, and I have so many points here.
Okay, I love Cassian and Nesta together. I think they're endgame. I do not think all the theories online, I do not think that it's going to be Eris and Nesta. I think it's Cassian and Nesta. I do not think that mating bond is going away. I love their relationship. I think there are parts of their relationship which are great. There are a few times Cassian bothers me, and it's going to tie into more. I'm so sorry. I am petty AF. I don't care if it was 500 years ago. If you've hooked up with someone, you better not be admiring them. I don't care how nice they are. I don't care how close you are. I don't care anything. Again, if I am your mate and you hooked up with some woman, you better not be thinking in your mind, oh, Mor is so lovely. No, okay. I'm sorry.
She has no idea he thought that.
No, but that's why I'm saying I don't like Cassian. In that moment, I don't like Cassian.
The way I see it, because of the way they teed this up. So they teed this up a couple ways before he even says that comment, right? The first is that Mor says that when she talks to Farrah, that she slept with Cassian because she knew it would mean little to him as well. That's a direct quote. So she knew that it meant nothing to her, and it would also mean nothing to him. Second is that he describes Mor as his sister, really. He notes that after everything happened, he rid himself of any lust towards her. Talking about how everything went down with Rhys and with Azriel and their emotions when they slept together. He rid himself of any lust towards her and changed that romance to familial affection. So to me, when they're trying to use this description to address any assumptions of lingering feelings, what he's really showing you is his love for her as a friend and sister, because what he says is she's as lovely on the inside as she is on the outside, which is what I would say of you or some of our other friends. So to me, people take that out and they go, oh, he's lusting after her. No, he quite literally tells you all of that lust is gone. And that he's admiring her as a sister and a friend because that is what this love and this relationship means to him now.
Okay, I concede your point. I see that because that is from a friendship perspective. That is what I would say about you and other friends. Right. I just think that if Nesta had heard that out loud, especially at that part in her journey, he thinks that he doesn't say it. But I just think that, okay, I concede your point. You made a valid argument.
He's allowed to think. I
agree. He's allowed to think, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
The only reason you feel weird about it is because they had...
Exactly. And I don't care if it's 500 years ago. That person exits your life if you slept with them. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to know that, he can't.
I know.
Also, I want to note that he hasn't slept with anybody since he's met Nesta.
True.
When he breaks down the timeline, he doesn't technically observe that, but he reflects. And it is since he met Nesta. You know that's what I need in a million. You know that's MMC gold to me. Like, oh.
I know. Okay, I have 2 points where I'm going to go for Cassian. And then everything after that's going to be how much I love their relationship, okay? But I'm going to be the voice of the Cassian naysayers.
Okay, but I'm ready. Dude, else, I have data here. I'm telling you. I've got quotes.
Okay. When it is not nice and it was not kind and it was not very romantic, and I think that, again, he's going through it and she was terrible to him and she hits him where it hurts most. She knows exactly what would hurt him and she fires that at him because she wants to hurt him and push him away. So she's just doing that. She's hurting him on purpose. She's pushing him away. But when he responded with, do you think I want to be stuck with you two? Not the coolest dude. Not because she hates herself so much that he also just hit on a part that really hurts her. Now, in his defense, she is going after everything that she knows will really hurt him.
Yeah.
Like, she goes off of, like, she is doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
So when he responds, he's doing it out of anger. Was it good? No.
Yeah. I think I want to equate what he said to essentially what Farrah says to Rhysand. Which is funny that you're fine with it.
Farrah never says anything nearly like that.
Nay, when after the
after the Court of Nightmares,
she looks at him and says, what does she say? She
basically said people would see who you really are and no one would want anything to do with you.
Exactly, which was his deepest fear that he had also shared with her. So I think again, we're being picky and choosy about when it's fine when she says it versus he says it. And I think that what he said, yes, was garbage. But I think we've also had these tensions in other relationships. It's just you didn't feel it as hard because she said it instead of Rhysand.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that's
she
very
said
true.
Plenty mean to him. I assure you Nesta kicked him when he was down many a time.
That's what I said. She kicks him when he's down. I am always a little more forgiving of female main characters than I am of male main characters.
True. I mean, I get that. I get that.
But
don't get me wrong.
Yes.
If I think about it critically,
yes,
Farrah did the exact same thing to Rhysand.
She did. You are right. I concede the point. And then obviously he loves Nesta. He shows he loves Nesta. That was just a thing to say. Again, I'm the voice of the naysayer. Okay, the next point is when he says, your sisters still love you. Heavens knows why. Ooh. Again,
he says this at the beginning, right?
Yeah. She's like, your sisters still love you. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. I think this is
not cool.
I want to recall the exact moment this is. So this is when he is pretty much saying he's done, right? We're all done. We all hate you.
Yes. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, right? Because I think Rhysand was much more patient with Farrah in some of this action.
Yes.
And I think that Nesta didn't get that same patience.
She didn't.
Now, again, Cassian's a different character, so we cannot ask for the same love story because it would be boring.
True.
And they wouldn't fit together, right? But I do agree that she didn't get the patience that Farrah got.
I love that explanation because you're right. That is, I think, the issue people have with Cassian is you're looking at it from you just have Rhys, which again is why Rhys and Farrah are my favorite romantic couple because of that patience from Rhys. But I still love Cassian and Nesta, and I still think he's obsessed with her. That's okay. Those are the naysayers. The thing about Moore, admiring Moore, grouse. The other thing, I still stand on that. If you've had with her, she can't be around. And
it's like not on the table for her to go.
It's not on the table, but I would be like, you'd never look at her again. Then just the two things he said, but literally that's all I could find upon this reread, and I was being critical. All that he says that are, I don't like that, is I really don't like that I'm stuck with you. Do you think I want to be stuck with you? I even dislike that more than the sister comment, but those are the only instances. So now I can put on my defending Cassian and Nesta.
Yes. So the first thing I want to talk about is people stand by this. He never said I love you. Now, there's quite a few points I want to make here.
Okay.
Number one is like at the beginning, he says something to Farrah. He says, you look fancy. And Moore just like is like, wow, that's his way of saying you look nice. He still can't say it, right? So they establish multiple times that Cassian is not one with words. She says like in all these millennia, you still can't like sweet talk a woman pretty much.
Yeah.
Then he makes a comment in his head about how he spilled his heart to her on the battlefield, that he looked for her solstice presence for months. But in the novella, he had to ask Moore what she wanted. She picked out what she wanted. So he didn't do that with Nesta. He got her a gift and searched for months. And he says that what he said to her on the battlefield was him spilling his heart. Then, one of my favorite things about Cassian is, again, while he said these things, he is the only person, and I'm talking Rhysand, I'm talking all of them, who, when it comes to defending his mate, is actually going to start over it.
True.
So he makes a comment that when he talks about Eris, he considers hurting Eris and Tamlin, but he says nothing would stop him from hurting a male who hurt Nesta. Aww. So if he ever found out the guy who did that to her in the human world, that he would have absolutely hurt them not sat by like Rhysand or Azriel even for Tamlin and Eris, because he was like, no, good for you guys for being chill about that. Not I.
I have a point here, but it's CC3, so nope, I'm not going to say it.
When Az asked if Cassian wanted a child, he immediately thought of Nesta. Mm-hmm. He thought of sleeping with her, but his brain immediately thought of Nesta and was like, Nesta.
Yes. I agree.
Then Death, this is my favorite part. When she's like got the flames in her eyes. Death watched him, but Death had walked beside him every day of his life. So Cassian stroked his thumb along her palm and said, hello, Ness.
Oh, I know. That is so sweet. I know.
I loved the way they talked about Illyrians and death and how it related to Nesta in this book. I thought her relationship with Azriel and her relationship with Cassian, this is the one time I finally liked Azriel and said, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I could see that. No, I actually really love the friendship that starts with Nesta in this book between like Azriel and Nesta. I love their friendship.
And it's interesting because I feel like that was when Rhysand takes Farah and everyone knows she's his mate, right? They treat her like she's a part of the family. Everyone knows Cassian and Nesta are mates. Even them, they're just pretending it's not happening.
You know what's so sad? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
The only person who treats her like family is Azriel.
Yes, I completely agree. That's why I say I love their friendship. He's the only person that also stands up for her in his way. It's not Cassian's way, but he stands up for her in his way and tries to have a relationship. I do love that. Also, I think it's also extra just so crummy of the inner circle and their feelings, minus Azriel and Cassian, obviously, and Farah, of their feelings towards Nesta, because you just had a great point right there. When they know that Farah is Rhysand's mate, they super welcome Farah in open arms almost immediately. They treat Nesta like she, multiple times, more Amren, Rhys even, like Nesta's not good enough for Cassian. So they really are low-key resentful that Nesta is Cassian's mate.
Yes, and I think it is so wrong because there is a point where Rhysand and Farah are talking, and Farah is like, you say that it's because of how they treated me when I was in the human world, right? You say it's because he says from the beginning, I'll never be able to look at them and not think of older sisters who let their younger sister go hunt and deal with all these problems.
Which he's not wrong in that. You would want that from a spouse.
Yes. But there's a point where he forgives Elaine and they are close. And Farah says, if you're going to forgive Elaine, you have to be willing to forgive Nesta because they are equal in whatever wrongdoing you think happened. And his response is, Elaine is just Elaine.
True.
No, that is unacceptable to pick and choose, because in my opinion, it's almost like he wants Meek and little Elaine to get away with it because, she's just Elaine. This is just how she is. It's okay if we coddle her, but it's okay to shit on Nesta. I totally disagree with that. And I think that is the whole approach of him and Moore, is like they almost want to bodyguard up against Farah, but it doesn't make sense for them to forgive Elaine and never forgive Nesta.
I agree. No, and I think that it's also something we see a lot in the real world, which we could talk about if it's right or wrong or whatever. But it's like, it's totally a saying, you get more flies with honey instead of vinegar. The reason they let Elaine slide is she's quote unquote nicer.
Yes. Everybody's scared to let her help. Nobody wants any harm to come to Elaine. Elaine is like this fragile little doll that everybody forgives for everything. And yes, she had some come up moments where she wanted to help, but she gets away with everything. She does. And Nesta has to bear the brunt as if it was only Nesta.
That is the biggest. I have some points that we're not done with the how Cassian shows Nesta he loves her. There are more, and I know you have more. But on this topic, the deepest betrayal, in my opinion, after Amren, because it's really Amren really hurts. I think for Nesta, what's even more painful is Elaine turning her back on Nesta. Oh my God!
You know, I should be mad about when she says that she's like a dog who only goes after whoever's feeding her, but she's fucking right.
She is. And after Nesta sacrificed, she doesn't for Farah, But she sacrifices so much of her life for Elaine, to protect Elaine, to keep Elaine, watch out for Elaine. Nesta put in so much work into Elaine's recovery in ACOWAR, because Elaine's the first one that kind of goes through it. And then when it's Elaine's turn to be there for Nesta, she's like, oh, these people are making my life easier over here. I'm going to shit on you because they shit on you.
Farrah and Cassian are the only ones who would be this is just how she gets mad. And that's okay. We just take her words, which again, isn't necessarily the right solution, right? I think they took it for too long, and Farrah's kind of weak, to be honest with you, and how she deals with her sisters. She is weak with her sisters.
I'm going to argue here. How? Because it's not whether, okay, think about it in an actual sibling relationship. This is not weakness. This is female strength done well. Farrah's ability to keep reaching out to Nesta. She never truly abandons Nesta. Her ability to help Nesta in her way of helping Nesta that she feels comfortable is strength. She continues to reach out. She never shuts it off.
I think that every time that somebody insulted Farrah over and over and over again, right? Tamlin, everybody who insulted her, she always just kind of takes it laying down and does the quote unquote right thing. I think that Nesta I love that. I think Nesta could have grown a bit more from a bite back where it was like, oh, you mean when I was hunting for you? You don't have to throw hands. You don't have to make it aggressive. But I do think that there's a point where you speak up for yourself and you say, oh, that's precious. She always just rolled over and let it happen. There's no relationship then. You don't have a relationship. You have a bark and you have a bow down to it. I'm not saying there's not strength in her still reaching out and always seeing her point, because she did. She did always see Nesta for who she was. Yes. But I think that Nesta would have been better served if somebody actually tried to speak to her and talk back to her the way that she was talking to people.
You're right in your point. Farrah does try to speak to her, but in Farrah's way. Yeah. I suppose.
And she would say something, and then Nesta would say something mean back, and she'd be like, okay, I'm going to let it go.
I'm not going to take any hate on Farrah. But your point is right.
I just think she's weak towards her sisters, weak-willed at standing up for herself towards her sisters. That's all.
Okay.
I think she should have said some words. I think she should have said some words to Tamlin. I think a lot of words should have been said from Farrah that were never said.
Very true.
Continuing down Cassian's love. Yes. He says he'll take whatever she offers him when she offers. The same thing, mind you, that Farrah did to Rhysand. And he talks about how that broke him, right? Amren's order holds when he says that he's not going to tell them about what weapons she made. So Amren's order holds, Rhys says, and for a heartbeat, Cassian hated him. So we have proof that right here that he does not bow down to Rhysand and his treatment of Nesta. Okay, I want to put a pin in that.
We're going to put a pin in that.
You hang out. Put a pin in that. If you've read Crescent City, you hang out till the end, because we are going to circle back to that note.
We are going to talk about that.
Okay, couple notes. Love is complicated. She dropped his stare at that. She was a coward for avoiding his gaze. Why? Because she knew he was talking about her. She knew that he was saying that love is complicated and referring to her because he loved her. Nesta didn't fight as he hauled her to her feet, held the knife against her throat, pleading shone in his eyes, pleading fear and love. Love she did not deserve, had never deserved, but there it was, just as it had been from the instant they'd met.
Oh, I know. That part at the end when he literally, we have not said my biggest thing that shows he loves her yet, but this is like my other big thing too, where I agree with you. Like that part, he literally goes to stab himself because he would rather die. Do it. Yes. Oh,
and then my last note, and you can add yours, to deserve not just his love, but the love of those around her, of Cassian. So you cannot tell me that time and time again, she is not proving and telling you that he loves her. I think he doesn't say it outright because she is not ready to hear it. She couldn't even hear that they were mates until the very end. So for everyone to sit here and be like, oh, he never said I love you. He did. He just didn't verbalize it the way you wanted.
Very true. No, his love language is acts of service.
Yes.
He is showing it through acts of service, just not words of affirmation. The part that gets me, I get chills and just like teary-eyed even thinking of it, because he just loves her so much, is when they're at the dance. She's dancing with Eris, And people are saying like, oh, what a great couple they look like together, yada, yada. And Cassian, we know from his perspective, feels self-conscious, doesn't feel he's good enough, doesn't know how to dance, isn't a good dancer. And Eris is this great dancer, but he's like, I don't care. I am going to go out. And Rhys even is like, don't interrupt them. Let them have this charade of, you know what I mean? And then he defies that. And he's like, absolutely not. I'm going to dance with her. I don't feel good enough, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Yep.
And I'm like, how could he not love her?
Yep.
Like, come on.
I think that not everything has to be this written soliloquy of love. Like, I mean, we got pages from Rhysand, right? We got we got a chapter of his love for her, right?
Chapter 55.
And I'm not saying that's wrong. That was excellent. I loved it. I love reading it. It makes me emotional every time. But I think that we can't say that one is love and the other isn't. That's not right.
I agree.
It's not right.
I agree. And I think if we just talk about all, like, what's so great about this series is you just see so many different relationship dynamics, romantic, familial, friendships. I think that this is so... When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And Cassian has shown her over and over and over he's there for her. Was it a little crummy when he threw out, but you're right, Farrah did that too. Threw out that what he knew would hurt her. But he shows her over and over and over that he's going to be there for her.
Yep. Agreed. Now, I do want to talk about something we talked about in the last episode, which was who Elaine ends up with, right? We know that there's this Lucien thing on the table. I think it's important to note that Lucien is Hellion's only heir. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's unknown at this point, but I don't believe it's going to stay unknown. I don't think Hellion's going to die for us to learn it. I think that there's got to be something, but there's always the debate of, does Lucien take over the Supreme Court, right? I think that's not on the table because of this Hellion relationship. I don't think it makes sense for them to tee up this relationship for them to give him the Supreme Court. Now, I do not believe that Tamlin should get a redemption arc, but I do want to note that Nesta says, as she gets to the Supreme Court, this place was made for someone like Elaine. And that bothers the hell out of me.
Yes, and agreed. And there's even that quote, too, where she wears the night court clothes, and they're like, this does not suit you. You should be right.
She's drab.
Yes, you should be in the spring court clothes, and she loves gardening, her flowers. We won't talk about her lack of gardening vegetables, but the flower.
I'm sorry, but if you wanted to bring something to the table and you love to garden, could you not garden some lettuce when we were poor?
No.
My God. A potato?
No. A potato.
Think of how many poor people lived off potatoes in every book we've ever read. Yes. And you're telling me this had to grow lilies? Like, come on.
Yeah, so true. So that aside, she's all into gardening. And so what if it's Eris goes to the Supreme Court and she's with Eris?
So that,
I don't know, though.
But Eris is teeing up to take over Baron's throne, right?
Right.
So I think, in my mind, I think that Lucien and Elaine have no... I think that they both purposely avoid each other. The only times we ever hear this quote-unquote jealousy is just Lucien feeling that mating bond. But even when he thinks of her and talks of her, it's not really that
he loves her.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't really even seem like he wants her. It's like he's trying to figure out what to do with this bond.
Yeah,
I also think that Sarah J. Maas has told us consistently that the bond isn't necessarily a perfect thing, but everything we've seen so far is a perfect thing. Now, is it possible that something happens to someone and this bond breaks, or I don't know, because I would also find it hard to believe that Elaine would get a story without a mate.
I agree. I think Elaine's getting a mate. I think this gives more credence, honestly. Again, it is out there, but somehow the mating bond is a farce. It's not real. It's not true between Lucien and Elaine. It is a spell of some kind.
From the cauldron. But it's interesting not really because the cauldron specifically gave Elaine gifts because it found her so lovely.
Exactly. Maybe we'll find out the reason. It took a special interest in her.
Or
that
Hellburn.
It made, exactly. That it somehow did this spell that's fake. And then, because I truly think that Lucien is going to end up with Vasa. And so I think, and there is way more chemistry between Azriel and Elaine, just way more.
And what I guess the part that I struggle with, because I really do think that Azriel and Elaine make sense, but again, Elaine can't stay at the night court. We kind of keep getting teed up for that. Azriel needs to stay at the night court.
Right? Yeah.
He does not lift out. Mm-mm. So I also don't think that makes sense
Ends
either.
Up. Yeah.
It's just, I don't see how this wraps up in a way that makes sense, right? She ends up at the spring court. I believe that. That is the one truth I believe.
What if it is Tamlin?
Sheridan, I will riot, okay? I will write letters daily to Sarah J. Maas like it's my side job, because that is so icky to me.
Yeah. Unless Tamlin is shape-shifting as Lucian.
If you can say that's not how your sister did it, it's not on the table.
That's disgusting. That's
it's
disgusting.
Not on the table.
And again, he's abusive. Why
and he's still in love with her, allegedly.
But yeah, again, he's abusive, so he should not get anyone. Okay?
No, he does not deserve. He does not deserve the redemption arc. He is abusive in every section of the word. Okay, roam your little beast territory. I don't give a shit.
Right? No, agreed. The only thing I could think of, because I agree with you, even though I don't think she ends up with Azriel, even though they have more chemistry, because I think Sarah J. Maas has really steered the ship away from that now. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that they end up together either, as many as the fans may be sad about that. So is it Eris and Elaine?
So something that's interesting to me, though, too, is that Azriel only goes after unavailable women.
Oh, is he afraid of emotional intimacy?
It just seems interesting. Somebody posted that and I was like, God, that's insightful.
That's true.
Holy cow. Because it is true. Like everything he does is after women who are emotionally unavailable that he knows he can't have.
Interesting.
There's a lot of security in that.
Interesting. Well, there is a theory online, again, these theories, that he had a mate and she died in the past.
Oh, that's sad.
So if
I also would find it hard to believe this, like the thing that kind of goes against the Lane theory, in my opinion, is it's interesting to me that he's still kind of pining over Mor throughout a significant chunk of even this book. So while they're teeing this up, they have not closed the door on Azriel's feelings for Mor, which is very important to me.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Even on this reread, I was looking for the Gwenness, and I also don't see them as a thing. I don't think any of these ships make sense to me. Now, dating back to one of my prior comments in our last episode, Nesta is the only one who tells Tamlin what he deserves to hear. The way she talks to him in the spring court, I was standing ovation for Farah from ACOTAR and acomaf, because nobody at any point in time even threw the verbal knives that Tamlin deserved, right? I can get the political intrigue and us not being able to be violent, right? Fine. But somebody needed to put him in his place, and the only person who did was Nesta, and I was sitting there like, thank you, because the only person who ever talks back to these people is Nesta.
I agree. That's another reason why I love Nesta's character too. Like in her journey and in her arc and her ability to stand up to people. I do. No, I completely agree. The only vindication.
Yeah. And she didn't show her love to her sisters in the right way, but like in front of Cassian about her sister, in front of Tamlin, the way she felt about Tamlin, even upon seeing him, was much better than what Rhysand even did to him. Rhysand feeds this. Okay, I get it. Again, I get it.
Again, he's being the good.
I get it,
Lord. Yeah.
Don't come after me. I get it, but I'm telling you, the only one putting him in his place was Nesta, and she was like, "Oh, huh,
right? Like, oh,
this peasant."
Right. Yes, exactly. No, I completely agree. And also, one of my favorite things from this book is her relationship with the house. How she manifested the house because she needed a friend. That heartbreak.
Like the Nesta and Eris thing, I looked for it. There is zero chemistry there.
I agree.
It does not exist. There's not tension even. Pretty much in her entire dance spiel is not even thinking of him. She's like, God, I love to dance.
That's true. I just like to dance.
Not the tension was with Cassian even when they danced.
True.
So I just don't think you have a leg to stand on. I'm sorry. If you've got data points, come at me. I'm interested. I'll debate with you all day. But the data wasn't there.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's something I'm going to say that's controversial, right? Which is the big unveiling of Farah being pregnant and it's going to her, right? And I pose this question to you. How is what Nesta said to Farah any worse than what Farah said to Mor before the war? about how, oh, you're just going to drag along Cassian and Azriel and blah, 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 blah. She goes after her low spot, because that's Moore's low spot at this point, right? That is her weakness that nobody talks about. And they get into this huge fight. And that was fine. But when Nesta says something, not just to be mean, because yes, did she say it to be mean? Yes. But what I really believe, and even Cassian notes this, is she sees herself in Farah, meaning people are debating whether or not she deserves to know this information about herself.
Yes. And I want to pause here and say too, how I took it from my perspective, I agree with that point. Also, she's telling her to alert her.
Yes. Like did she say it in a moment of malice and probably should have rethought how she delivered it? Absolutely. Yes. But what she said and why she said it was like, are these our friends? Are they treating us with respect? Because I don't feel respected, and I don't think you should either.
I agree. Again, we are going into weird character assassination in this book of Rhys in the Inner Circle when it comes to Farah's pregnancy storyline. It is extremely strange. But I agree.
Although, is it character assassination? Because I thought about this some more. Okay. At every turn for his Inner Circle, yes, Rhysand gave her a choice of fighting in the war, etc., right? Choice, yes. But at every turn, including Moore, including Amren in the book, including, and when I say more, I'm talking more and Eris and Care all the time. And now this, how many times did Rhysand give them a job, a challenge, etc., and not tell them the truth?
Oh, that's very true.
You're
100% correct. Yes. To Farah, it's character assassination of the relationship of not communicating this with her and giving her the choice. When it comes to everyone else, you are 1,000% correct.
I just think it was another quote unquote High Lord decision, because we also forget that they agreed to die together. So he just thinks, oh, I'm not going to tell her because she's going to know that my life is tied to hers, and I have accepted this as a loss. And I think that we look at it, I do agree that it's a choice, but I think we're looking at it wrong, and we're really negating how many times that Rhysand, as quote unquote High Lord, made High Lord decisions that he could have absolutely filled other people in on and chose not to.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. I completely agree. I think where it's the assassination is in the relationship between him and Farah.
Yeah, because you just backtrack.
Correct.
Yeah,
you did. And it's also like, again, if you're out here making all these good decisions, being a good High Lord, why did you make that decision to bond?
Yes.
I mean, I guess it's romantic, but it is kind of
like, as Amren says, romantic fools.
yeah. So it is kind of like, I get it, they're like the ultimate love, or, in this series, but it's like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have made that decision. Yeah. It's kind of an odd decision. But anyways, that aside, I think it's assassination in the relationship, because I actually love Nesta in that moment for, again, you're right, her delivery is terrible and it's mean, but she is actually telling Farah what no one else has told Farah.
Yes. I think up until that point, she's like, I'll totally keep it secret, sees everybody else's point of view. And I think in that moment she sees herself and she's like, are we being respected? Like, I think it's like that moment of reflection where she's like, I don't think we are. Which I agree with. I don't think either of them were being respected.
No.
Now,
I agree.
I have one final point for you. Okay. And it is interesting. We talked about it a little bit in our last ACOTAR episode, and I told you let's put a pin in it. And it's who I think Moore ends up with. Are you ready?
Yes! Oh my God, yes.
There is tension between Emery and Moore.
Oh, okay.
I never caught this the first time. The second time, there is a moment on page 571 of A Court of Silver Flames, and Moore is in the library, and Nesta and Gwyn are in there. And so Nesta, Gwyn, and Emery are in there. Gwyn was waiting a level below, watching them with Emery in the stacks behind here. What are you doing? Nesta asked Emery. She'd still been in the training ring when Nesta had hurried off to her dancing lesson, but that had been hours ago. I wanted to see where you two work, Emery said, eyes upon Clotho and Moore a level above. She sighed, nodding towards Moore. I always forget how beautiful she is. She never comes to Windhaven these days. Nesta could have sworn the pink stole over Emery's brown cheeks.
Ooh, okay.
Baby all girl, right. We got it tee up. I'm telling you,
you have some flirtation.
Ship is Emery and Moore.
Okay, I respect it. I missed that, but that's a good catch.
I was like, I did like a double take because again, this time I go into it with the thought of really paying attention to Moore and some of these side characters that I kind of didn't really pay as much attention to. And I was like, hang on, hold the phone, my friend. You be blushing at Moore. Emery and more, you heard it here first.
I like theory. We'll see you next book.
I haven't seen that theory yet. Maybe I'm too deep in the Cassian trenches, but I have not seen that theory yet. Also, they note a lot about Moore having like darkened eyes in this book. Like her new role is struggling. Something's eating her from the inside. So there's a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah. We have a more story coming. I agree. More story coming.
I'm so excited. Okay, in the next book, I need wrap up of Elaine, Lucien, and Asriel. I need to know Eris's redemption arc and who he ends up with.
Eris deserves it. Eris is Rhysand from another perspective. Sorry for the haters, it's true.
I agree, and I'm down for it. I'm excited here. And another thing I need to see in next book is more in Emery.
Yeah, I'm confident.
We will see. We will see, Jordan.
All right, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, you hit all my big points. And I just want to end this episode saying we are Nessian believers and supporters.
Yeah. You cannot come to my house and tell me otherwise.
Agreed.
All right. Well, you heard it here first through the grapevine. If you like what you heard, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Sippin' on Spice.
And we also have a YouTube channel where you can go and see some of our previous podcast episodes, but we also upload a lot of fun, just bookish content episodes on there. So please go check us out on YouTube.
Awesome. And we hope to catch you next week.
Cheers.